Hello and welcome. Today we're going to show minecarts acting a little bit more like trains. So before we get started, I'm just going to get on the northbound line. I'm going to go to the, let's go library station, buy our ticket, get on our cart and head off. So basically, obviously minecarts, they're not the fastest way of getting somewhere. You don't really get to choose where you're going too much. But like trains, you can sort of like set them away and then do something else while they take you to your destination. And really, this is the way I think minecarts for passenger transport should work. Now, if you look at a real train line, you've got, various stations, and you might either stop at the station or you might not. You've got various lines, you come up to junctions, and you might follow them one way or you might go a different way. But more or less, the train does the work. So if that sounds like something you want in your Minecraft world, stick around. I'll show you what's good about the system and how to build it. So the biggest difference between this minecart system and others you might have seen is how you decide which station you're going to. So when you're picking a station in this book, all it's really doing is saying how many stations you'd like to skip. So if you pick the first page, you're really just saying get off at the next station, or the second station, or the third station. We can deal with branch lines pretty simply because all a branch line is a place you could take a shortcut. So if we're coming along here and I say I want to go one station, then I'm going over to the aquatic station. 2 stations, that station in the distance you can just see. But if I say 3 stations, well, that would be all the way up there and start coming back. So we can just encode, to have this shortcut be taken if we're going further than, 2 stations. So 1 and 2 are that direction, but 3 and onwards is over here. Likewise, we can have a different sort of branch. So we can say that stations 1 and 2 are that way, and 3 and onwards are this way. But we can also, instead of saying it's a shortcut, we can say, oh yeah, you start off by going that way, but if you're coming from this direction, instead of going back over there, we'll come back onto the main line. This allows you to do the sort of circuits that you might see in, the trains in your home city. So how do you address your stations? Well, you simply work out where you're going to put your book, and you just count along. So, Cherry Station's 1, Mystery Station, Aquatic, our Slime Station, over to our Library Station, and back at number 6 for our Sandstone Station. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or if we're going in the other direction down this line, we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This makes setting up the system really, really easy. You don't actually have to change any redstone when you change the system. You just have to work out which books counting would change and update them. It also means that you can have as many stations as you want. You could go, 15 stations down this line, get off, get onto another southbound cart and go another 15 stations. So there's only about 5 components you need to know about to build it, and most of them have been around for a long time. I found out about them from a video by Myzuma's Games. In his video, he was dealing with a roundabout system for minecarts. That didn't really appeal to me, so I've adjusted it to, deal with minecarts passing through stations. We're going to start in the middle. So the first thing is a memory circuit. This captures, information from a previous station and holds on to it till the minecart gets there. And it's basically a memory circuit. These 2 comparators, these 2 blocks, and these 2 bits of redstone will hold a signal strength indefinitely until they're cleared by this repeater, and a new signal strength can be entered in by this comparator. We can take input over here, so we're using a target block, so that's 5, the block's 5, if the block's 5, the redstone dust is 5, so we can take input from multiple directions. One input could be the page you select at the station ticket booth, or it could be a signal decoded from the previous station. In order to get it to the next station, though, we need to change it from a signal strength to a signal duration, because this makes it easier to send it between the stations. We can just use a regular repeater line. So what we do is we take a signal from our detector rail, pass it through a 2-tick limiting rising edge detector. So this will take the first 2 ticks of the signal and no more, which will release this comparator, allowing it to send the signal strength through for just 2 ticks, and then we put it into this fader clock. And what this fader clock does is it holds the repeater for the duration of, the time it takes to fade it. We can just have, a repeater line here. We can put repeaters anywhere we like. It makes it nice and easy. And eventually we come around to another station. Now the station needs to remember a signal strength, not a signal length. So we just feed it into this circuit here, which will start at a signal strength of 1 because this is minusing 14 from 15. But as long as the signal's going, as long as it keeps going, this will start increasing, which will reduce that, which will allow this signal to increase in strength, till it eventually gets to the same signal strength it was before. In my zoomers video, this is the buffer. We're just going to adjust it a little bit to allow us to do our stations. The first adjustment we're going to do is we're going to decrease the signal by 1 as it comes out. So we still have our little decoder here, but what we're doing is instead of taking the first signal out from it, we're taking the second one. So it should be decoding a strength of 14, we'll end up getting a 13. If it should be a 2, we'll get a 1. If it's a 1, we'll get a 0. We're doing this for 2 reasons. 1, so that we can count along stations, but 2, it also allows us to detect if we're the last station. So I've got here a button, which will be a nice long tick. And you can see it takes a little while to fade down. And we get, no lamp. Or we can go a slightly shorter one. So this is our 4 tick. So this would be our signal strength of 2. Comes through much sooner, but the light still goes off. But if it's only 2 ticks, which accounts to, 1 signal strength, we'll see that that redstone torch switches and stays on. And that's because when this is a signal strength of 1, it moves the item over here, but once it gets any higher than 1, it puts it back. So this allows us to do 2 things. It lets us know if this is the station we want to get off of, so we can change our settings, or it reduces it by 1 so that the next station gets 1 less signal strength than the previous one. So now let's look at the components all put together. So our first component is the buffer. So the buffer, it doesn't change the signal. It's literally almost the same as the buffer for MyZoomer Games. It's just one direction. We decode our signal. We put it in our memory latch. And when the minecart comes over, for 2 ticks, we release it into our encoder again and send it back on its way. Very, very simple. We've just moved the rising edge limiter here and sitting it over the top instead of to the side, just to make it a bit more compact, but it's the same as we showed earlier. To make a station, instead of feeding this directly into the memory circuit, we're just feeding it along 2 blocks sitting next to 2 droppers with 1 item in them. We then feed that from a comparator into this little torch contraption, and we just want to make it so that if that is on, this rail leads you down. If that is off, that rail keeps you going. Depending on whether you're going north, west, or southeast, you have to change the arrangement. So this is the, I believe, northwest configuration. So we have a torch coming into a block, coming into a torch to the turning rail. In the other configuration, it's just a repeater into a block, into a torch. So 1 less torch, changing the, on to off here because, rails are dumb. That drops our signal by 1. The other thing we've done is we've got our book up here. We're just taking the signal from the book when it's released by that button, feeding it into this block so that it also goes into the memory circuit. And the button also deactivates this torch, which when the button finishes will reactivate it again. And this is just doing a little bit of a dropper dispenser tower. So you can see you've got a dropper, and a dispenser. This is what's getting our carts back up. And the carts are filled because the carts will come along here when this is the last station. And I will just fake that for a second. So this is if it's the last station. We can see that the cart will come here. It'll drop the passenger off via the activator rail. Then the minecart will come down here, into the cactus, into the hopper, and into this dropper dispenser tower. This last section is encoded grey because this is the configuration for a station if there's only one way you're going to go forward, so there's only one station forward and you're not going to turn. However, in some cases you might want to turn. That's what these 2 contraptions are about. So you basically take away this grey section, so you basically take away the signal strength to duration encoder, and you basically instead push it through this thing that basically works out if, so that results in a signal strength. I'll just put that there for a second and press F3, so that's currently 5. So basically what this is saying is if the signal -5 is anything, we move the signal on this side, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 will go this way, but -5, so they become 6 becomes 1, 7 becomes 2. And if it's less than 5 or 5 and less, it goes this way instead. So we basically can split our signal so that, this is for the tracks we want to go this way, and this is for the tracks we want to go that way. And you can do this on either side. You can bypass to the left or you can bypass to the right. Both will fit within the station footprint. You just end up, instead of having those 3 extra blocks, it's another, 4 on top of that, so 7 total. So you end up getting, 4 longer. And then it's just a matter of adjusting the rails, and we can do that with our droppers as well. So if the signal comes along this side, we want to go this way, that will move over to here, changing the angle of that rail. Same thing over here. This is just a short circuit variation. Don't really need to use these. All you need to remember is you just want to make sure that if you get a pulse on this side, this rail turns, so you're going this way. If you get a pulse on this side, you turn the rail this way. And you can do the same trick with the torches here. So if you don't want to, if it's not turning the right direction, instead of doing the torch there, you just do the arrangement where you do the blocks like this. So very straightforward. And then the last thing you need to do is to make sure the signal gets through. So if we're going to this line, we come through the block and take the signal out again and join it onto the signal that would be coming this way to go to the station that's over there. It gets a little bit more complicated when you're trying to do the turnback station, but it's very similar. So again, we've got the 2 signals, so we're either going to be going that way or forward. If we're going this way, we just move the item over, changing the signal so we go this way and turn the signal on. Otherwise, if we're going straight over that way, we take the item that way, changing the state of the turn, take the signal through into a block. This sort of pattern where you've got repeaters going into blocks that are above each other is just a way of crossing lines, and that's all this doing. This line goes this way, that line comes through here and goes that way. And since we've got the minecart coming back this way instead, we're just going to join it onto the signal line going this way instead. All very straightforward. And that's really all there is to it. In the description below, there's going to be a link to a world download, as well as some Light schematics for you. Thank you for watching.